The key to a successful webinar is that not only does it have the right topic for the right audience, but once you have an audience, it's got to be engaging and interesting to keep their attention throughout the entire time you're talking. In this short video, I'll share with you some 4 simple tips that you can use to make sure you keep your webinars interesting, engaging and informative for your audiences. Tip is speak to the individual. Forget the fact that when you are looking at your webcam, when you are talking to a webinar audience that there might be 100, 200, 300 people online, you want to make sure that everything you say is tailored such that it would be the same as you would when you are having a conversation with an individual sat on the other side of the desk. What do I mean? Well, for example, if you were sat talking to an individual, would you ask them, who here has had success with webinars? You wouldn't ask the question in that way. You would rephrase it and you would say, tell me or type in if you have had success with webinars. The difference? The word you. So it's about tailoring your language so that it's personalized for the individual. So keep your webinar presentations tailored and your language tailored as if you are talking to one person on the other side of the desk. The second tip is a big tip. It's a really, really big tip to remember. And that's keep your presentation and keep your webinars tailored for ears, eyes, and fingers. Now, I've already touched a little bit on the ears section in terms of tailoring your language to be such that you're talking to the individual. But when we're also talking about ears, think about stories, case studies that you can use in your presentation to keep it interesting, to keep it a little bit engaging, the same as if you would do in a normal in-person presentation. A factually based presentation, whether it's delivered in person or on a webinar, is boring. So keep your presentation tailored for the ears to keep it engaged. So use focused messages and incorporate stories and case studies to keep it interesting. When it comes to the eyes, this is where most people fall down, unfortunately. What do I mean? Well, it's around the PowerPoint presentation. They fall into the typical PowerPoint trap of having bullet point after bullet point after bullet point on the slides. That's boring, and it's boring in an in-person presentation, but it's especially boring for a webinar presentation. What you need to do with a webinar is keep your presentation slides graphic. Keep them with plenty of pictures. Make them emotive. So, whereas you might put 3 points on one PowerPoint slide for an in-person presentation, that becomes 3 separate slides in a webinar with maybe just a handful of words and a picture there. It allows you to then talk to that picture and describe it, remembering that if someone can read ahead of you, they're going to get bored. So keep your presentation slides graphic, keep them interesting, put pictures on there and make it engaging for the eyes to look at. And finally, keep the fingers active. In a webinar, people can move off to do other things very quickly, very easy, very simply. They can go and jump onto the news. They can go have a look at the latest sports news. They can jump onto their social media and go check out Facebook updates. If you're not keeping your presentation engaging and interactive, they're going to do that. One of the best ways to keep it interactive is to basically leverage these digits here. So ask questions that require your audiences to respond back. So ask them questions, whether they're either typing into a chat box to respond back to you, or they're answering poll questions. So they're clicking on yes, no answers in a poll, and they're voting for something. Just so that they can get some form of interactivity, some form of engagement with you as you deliver your live webinar. That will help you keep your audiences sticky, keep them around, keep them interested, and hold them right to the very end to when you have a sales message to share with them. The third tip is read minds. Now, what do I mean? I'm not asking you to become psychic. Well, yeah, maybe I am asking you to become a little bit psychic. Put on the special hat, put the crystal ball in front of you and ask yourself the question as you prepare your presentation, what would the audience be thinking at this point here? Based upon what they know and where they're starting from and the topic you're talking about, what questions might they have at this point? If you can answer, or you know what questions they have, you can answer those questions. The better you can do that, the more you will keep them engaged. The minute an audience member starts to have too many questions that are not being answered, they're going to move off because it's getting too hard and too complex for them. So keep your presentation structured such that you're always answering the questions that's going to be in the minds of your audience at any particular point in time. The final and best way to keep your webinar engaging and interesting is to be passionate about the topic. Let your passion come through in your voice and in your facial expressions and in your delivery. Allow that to shine through. Don't be a boring, monotone speaker. Be passionate. Show enthusiasm for what you're saying and sharing. That will radiate through the screen and through the speakers so that your audience on the other side can actually see that passion. They can feel that passion and they will be drawn in by that passion. So please don't be afraid to show a little bit of passion about the topic that you're sharing, because it will go a long way to making your presentation, your webinar successful, because you have held the interest and engaged your audience right throughout. If you want more tips on how you can become a better webinar presenter, a better speaker, so that you can increase your influence, check out the Public Speaking Skills Academy website. There we have a range of options for you. You can just get tips and advice from our blog. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter where you'll get weekly tips that come out to you, weekly videos. Sign up for it today and get your free tips, your free advice from the Public Speaking Skills Academy.